It's my pleasure.
Perfect. And I just want to kind of give a small intro here just so that we're on the same page with everyone. So Alain will be speaking to us on behalf of Éducaloi. For those of you who may not be familiar, Éducaloi is an independent nonprofit organization. It's a leader in the movement to improve access to justice in Quebec. And their mission is to inform people about their legal rights and responsibilities in everyday plain language, amongst many other things. Alain is a lawyer, a plain language specialist, and a translator. Today, he's going to actually discuss how to stream public legal information sessions on Facebook Live, introduce a software for video recording and live streaming called OBS Studio. And yeah, and just two more things before I let Alain have the stage here. I just want to remind everyone that the session is being recorded. So if someone you know couldn't tune in today, absolutely the recording will be made available later on. If you guys have any questions, depending on our time constraint today, I know an hour is sometimes goes by really fast. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to do so. We will do our best to get to some questions at the end of the webinar. If we don't actually get to them, I will have them, the ones that you kind of typed up, and also feel free to reach out to me or Alain directly, and we can answer those after the session if you have any of those. Okay, so without further ado, Alain, feel free to take the stage.
All right, well, hi everyone. So I don't need to do the intro about who and what Éducaloi is. So, and I imagine that public information is something that interests everyone out there. So at the start of the COVID crisis, we were scrambling, I think like everyone else, to kind of get a handle on the situation and to figure out how and what information we want to get out there. And so obviously we started the website because that's what our primary platform is for reaching the public. It's publishing on our website. But I don't know, I'm a millennial, so I tend to think that there's also more interactive ways of reaching people. And so I thought, okay, well, let's maybe look into doing some live streams. And our Facebook page has 35,000 likes or something like that. So it's a fair reach for a NGO in a relatively small kind of province. And so we did a first test run, and I was looking into it. We did a partnership with an organization in Quebec City called the Quebec City Reading Circle, and that was done through Zoom. And actually Zoom has a function that lets you stream directly to Facebook without going kind of through the intermediary of what's called an encoder, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. That's what the OBS software is. It's an encoder that will take the video input and allow you to kind of play with it and have a nice output. So if you've ever seen any Twitch.tv streamers, they have like graphics up here and down here, and it allows them to be a lot more interactive and a lot more visually stimulating. And also probably a little bit nicer than just looking at my blinds. In any event, I thought about doing that, and so what we did was Michelle, who works at the QCRC, had the idea of doing kind of a two-person dialogue, which I thought was a really interesting format because I think we've all had quite a lot of video conference or trainings that involve just one person sitting there and talking to you, a little bit like I'm doing right now, unfortunately, but I promise it'll be more interactive and more interesting in a few minutes. So that actually worked really well, I thought, for engagement, because it allows a dialogue and also for the moderator to take questions so they can kind of interject at the right times to kind of guide the discussion and keep it a little bit more lively. And we thought that was a really fun format. And so the first one was just through Zoom, and then we basically recorded it and then publish it on Facebook later. And so Facebook has a function that allows you to broadcast previously recorded videos as kind of a live stream. It's like a fake live stream, but it has the same experience. People connect, and it seems, you can respond in the chat and stuff like that. But the first real one we did, and I'm just gonna maybe share in a second my screen, was a little bit more professional looking, because I think the reason we're going to live stream is to reach a different type of audience than you would reach with maybe a website. The fact is, like on our website, half of our traffic comes from mobile users. And that tells me that there's a significant amount of people who aren't necessarily, well, there's a large large percentage of people who might prefer to receive their media and their information in a different format than just kind of traditional video or website text. So getting it to Facebook is actually pretty simple. And it's like, it was a fun process for me to learn. And I did it in maybe a day or two. I obviously have some technical, I'm like relatively familiar with it, but it's still pretty straightforward, honestly. So what you can do is on the page that you manage, you're gonna, and I just wanna maybe, actually 1 second, sorry. I thought, am I sharing my screen? Or is someone able to tell me whether or not they see this?
Yeah, Alain, you're good.
Oh, awesome, thanks, awesome. Okay, so it's a thing called Facebook Producer. And you'll see here, actually, let me see if I can, it's all in French. Sorry, I forgot to change it to English before the presentation. But in any event, you have kind of a few different ways of streaming on Facebook. You can do it basically directly from your own laptop here, or from your desktop. And then you just kind of choose the input camera. I'm not going to select it here because it's going to bug out because I'm already using it. But you basically choose a camera, click a few things, and then you just click on the Go Live button down here, and you're casting directly. It's really, really simple. So it's the trickier part I found, and the reason why I really want to move towards an encoding system was if you wanted to have more than one person talking, suddenly Facebook Live directly like this doesn't really work. So that's why having an encoder software is really interesting. And actually Zoom is kind of its own encoder. It allows you to stream directly to Facebook. And so I don't have admin privileges on this call, otherwise I could share my screen and do it. But in Zoom itself, you can just, there's an option in the parameters to basically click on stream to Facebook and it'll open a Facebook Producer tab like this directly. The advantage is it's obviously very simple. The disadvantage is I think it looks, relatively pedestrian. And I think the people who are going to tend to want to listen to live streams probably have some expectations about production quality, and it just makes it more engaging and stimulating when it looks a little bit nicer. So that's why I kind of stumbled upon this thing called OBS, which is a streaming platform, or it's a streaming encoder. And it works on, it's a relatively simple concept, is how you have different down here kind of scenes, and you construct what's in these scenes by adding different elements here. And so just before the presentation, I just went into Microsoft Paint and grabbed a few, just made a few little things. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. So Keith, I just saw that. Thanks for pointing that out. You can just go to Producer. You go to facebook.com/live/producer. You can just Google Facebook Producer as well. It'll get you there. And that brings you to the production page right here. If you do it in Zoom, it'll open it automatically. So if you just want to yourself live stream on Facebook through Zoom, it's pretty simple. But you can't do any of the more fancier stuff that I'm going to show you. And so the way that scenes work is you're just going to add down here in the scene, just down the OBS. It's free, by the way. You don't need any sort of license or anything like that, which is also really nice just for experimenting. You're going to create the scene. You can actually probably just rename it. It's easier. So I like to call it the waiting room because this is the screen that people will see when the stream starts. So you don't have that awkward moment where, the presenter's just sitting there waiting for people to join, and, so you can just pick an image. You go from an existing source. Oh, sorry, this is going to be waiting room. I'm still learning, by the way, so I apologize. I just thought it'd be fun to share this for people. So I did this really, really quickly in around 5 minutes. And so this black screen here is kind of the output. That's what it's going to look like. So you can just click and drag this basically to like fill up the space. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to change the output screen. My bad. My mistake, everyone. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Oh boy, that's got to be really annoying. Okay, is this better?
Hyla, yeah, you're good now.
Sorry about that, folks.
No problem.
Okay, all right, let's just go back a step then. Okay, all right, sorry, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this. Get that out of the way. We're just gonna go back. So actually, yeah. So, okay, these are the scenes down here. These are the sources. You create a scene, you rename it to whatever you want, and you add just kind of existing sources. You name it whatever you want, and you just go and find something. And I just made these really quickly. I don't think they're quite the right size, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. It's just kind of more proof of concept. There you go. So you can insert any old image, doesn't matter. I mean, it really, really doesn't matter too much. And I don't think I sized this the right way, so that's kind of funny. But, and then you can just actually basically have any image, or you can, basically this will be your first scene. This is what people are going to see when the stream starts. Because what you do is on the next one, you're going to do the actual live scene, and you can do transitions between them. So, and down here, you can kind of handle the transitions. So when you're ready to go and your presenters, because you can be doing stuff behind the scenes here, talking to your presenters, making sure everyone's ready, making sure the microphones are working. And then when you're ready to go, you can click over to the next one, which you can just insert a new one. And again, this is just really rough, because I didn't spend too much time trying to get it perfect, but just so like you can do something that's at least interesting in a few minutes. And the thing is, there's a million different overlays you can use out there. It's actually really interesting. There's a whole industry surrounded or based upon doing this. And so what I'm going to do here is basically use this as the same background, but what I want to do is capture video from, what I usually do is connect to Zoom and use Zoom as the conversation. And so you have Zoom running in the background. You're going to open up OBS, and you're going to capture the video and audio of Zoom and then insert it into this here. And you do that by, first of all, you're going to do a screen capture. No, sorry, a window capture. And this might not work because you might not be able to see it, because sometimes it doesn't like using the same video that I'm using. And you see here under window, you can choose different applications that you want to capture. And so you're going to use Zoom. Actually, that's the wrong one. You're going to do mine right here. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think, because, okay, maybe you will. You'll see this part, but you won't see me necessarily. And then what you do is you can resize it. Okay, it's funny. Yeah, it doesn't want to show my actual view of the meeting. So this is a little bit annoying. But basically, imagine you're going to see here, when you go into your Zoom, you're going to see basically people, what we did with two people next to each other. So you see the camera of one person on the left, one person on the right, and then you can bring it to the forward so that you just have the two videos superposed there. So all you're going to see is this screen with one person here, one person here. And even just that I find to be really nice, and it's a bit more of a professional presentation. And I like the aesthetics of it a lot. It's OBS, by the way. And yeah, sorry. So Fiona, exactly. This gets sent directly to Facebook, and you do all the interactions on the Facebook platform. And so when you've got everything kind of set up ready to go, of course you're going to also want to capture the audio of the computer. And can I just see if anyone still hear me?
You're loud and clear, Alain, from my end here.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, so you can add the audio capture as well with the video capture. That way OBS is going to register everything coming into the computer and everything coming out of the computer as well. So that otherwise, if you just do the video, you're only going to see and not going to be able to hear. So I see a lot of questions here. I'm just going to try to take a look. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys don't see the questions.
Yeah, and hi, sorry. Yeah, so
I understand.
Some of them are in the chat, and then Fiona
okay.
did raise one in the actual Q&A, which
so I'm just going to maybe go back and answer maybe a few of the questions because I see that I've been kind of missing a few of them. I apologize, folks. So Fiona, earlier you're saying, you can do both, actually, Fiona. You can both have a webinar, and that's actually a model that we've been thinking about adopting, is that I've done several in-person kind of presentations or webinars to a small audience, and sometimes it involves driving 1 or 2 hours to give the presentation, and then there's 4 people there. And that seems kind of a waste of resources to me, but if I bring my computer with me and there's a decent internet connection, there's no reason why I can't also schedule a broadcast for that webinar. So it's really your choice. You can do it live, or you can kind of do it both times in the middle. Or anyway, sorry, I got mixed up there. So Michelle, you can actually choose how you want to crop the video. You can see around the edges here.
Just interrupt if you don't mind reading the question.
This is like this window here is the. You can kind of choose what you're showing of it. The background now is black, so as I move this in, it's just putting the black in, but like the image is still there. And so you get to crop kind of, so what you do is basically capture the entire Zoom window, but you actually crop down the window so you only see the relevant portion. And I'm doing this by holding Alt, by the way. And so it's going to put the entire Zoom window in there, but as you manipulate kind of the boundaries of it, it's going to dictate what people see. And if I want, you can position things in different layers. So I'm just gonna add something really quickly here, just to kind of show you, give you an idea of what I mean. So like I'm gonna add Éducaloi's logo. It's giant, enormous, it's out of scale. But you'll see as I just move it down a notch, you see as it kind of takes superposition or not, based on the way you order things down here. Okay. And Fiona, yeah, like I said, just to your second question about whether there's actual participants, yes, like the presenters are on Zoom. You have the choice of having people there just listening on Zoom if they want, but I just find it's logistically a lot easier just to send people to our Facebook page and have them listen live. That way we're having all the questions and answers in one column. Okay, so I'm going to delete this real quick. And so that's kind of the OBS platform in a nutshell. We could spend a long time kind of going through ins and outs, but I think you have like the basic idea of things. There's another tool that I use to kind of get there's a different one that I had. The first one I did that looks a little bit nicer, but it's a little bit problematic. I find it with the audio, but I'm going to give it a shot. Hanna and Jess, if ever my audio cuts out, you want to just cut in, drop in and let me know. So this is the waiting room logo that I created. It took a little bit longer, and so when people pop in, this is what they're going to see here. That's and you have a little animated kind of. You can have different things on this. And this is, I made this using a tool I found online, and I can show you what that looks like. But this is kind of just a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer. And then again, logo, and then down here, I have the Zoom capture here that's already here, so it'll just actually show the people over here. This is just a COVID stream that we did, and it's really easy to change these things because you can just choose different images and change them around. Like if I don't want to, this is just the subject matter. All I would do is insert a different logo here or a different name. It's just little text if you want. You can even write. So it's really, really, really customizable, and there's really no limit to what you can do with it. So I'm going to stop this. Oh, not she. While we're on the subject of overlays, and before I move on to Facebook, I'm just going to maybe share with you one of the things that I found. And it's going to be here. I'm going to change the screen first. Okay. And so there's this thing called Scene Maker that I downloaded that basically creates that splash page that you saw. And it's really, really easy. It's easy in the sense that it takes a fair amount of time to manipulate to get it right you want. But I'm just going to change the background real quick because it opened up another browser. Here we go. So this is what that file opens into, and you'll see at the top right, scene title. This is what the overlay looks like by default, so you have to really play with it. But it's really interesting because it just allows you a lot of customizability in the elements. And a lot of the stream overlays you'll find out there are actually really gamer oriented, which doesn't make it super appropriate for obviously public legal education necessarily. But if you're willing to pay some money and there's subscription services that sell overlays, that can be a really good option to get you. I mean, you can also just get good at Photoshop, but that's not necessarily something that a lot of us have time to work on. And so you can just kind of turn off different elements. You'll see as I go through, it'll like, this is basically a preview of what it's going to look like when you click on produce. You can just turn off all the things if you want, make it nice and simple. Change the colors here. Like I've changed the color to be our Éducaloi color and things like that. So, and then you would just download it here. It would create a JavaScript file that you can then import into OBS. And I'll just switch back over to OBS. And then what you can do is add, I'm going to go back to the other one real quick. What you can do is add your own scene here, and then you can import it here as a source. Why won't it? Huh, interesting. Anyways. Okay, well, that one didn't work, and I'm not sure why. That's kind of funny. Oh, wait a minute, I know why. I got it. It's actually, you add it as a browser source. You chose local file here, and then you go and find the thing you just did, which in my case, I believe was here. That should be, anyways, it's saved as their own type of file. You get the idea. I'm not gonna stress about it too much. So, yeah.
This is Jess. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Are there coaching sites for OBS?
I'm sure there are. There's lots of, I've Googled basically anytime I have a question of how to do something, I just Google, how do I do this in OBS? And there's like 20 replies in different websites, but specific resources, I just use Google, and it tends to give me the right answer 99% of the time.
Great, thanks.
But I mean, I'm pretty self-directed about it. I imagine that there are definitely tutorials out there, like YouTube tutorials are also super helpful, actually, now that I think about it, because I watched a few YouTube tutorials, and it really set me straight and got me online pretty quickly. So yeah, maybe YouTube I would suggest, because it's visual. You can kind of pause it, follow along, and if you get lost, what was I going to do? Right, okay, so let's pretend that inside these two squares here is the Zoom window. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that I can't go through that process because of it, but if you basically choose the window here, you're gonna pick basically zoom here, and sometimes you have to play with the method of capture because sometimes the automatic doesn't work, and you'll pick one, and there we go. See, it just popped up. That anyways. So let's just pretend that there's two people inside of this. So Keith, so things are downloaded. Yeah, basically what I did was, again, I just basically downloaded free streaming overlay, and let me just share that with you. And you can go to, this is actually where nerdordie.com happened to be the resource that I found that was helpful. And it shows you different overlays, and they've got free overlays. You could pay for them as well. Paying for them is nice because you obviously get a lot better selection of things. But I wanted to do it cheap. I didn't know how it would work. And also, speaking of how it could work, our first real publicized live stream, we had 4,000 views within the first 10 hours, which I find to be pretty fantastic for the type of subject that we deal with. So yeah, when in a good month we'll have 50,000 views on a specific page about an important topic of law. Having 4,000 people watch a video, I think is pretty stellar. It comes with some challenges. I guess I'll maybe talk about this before I move on to the actual streaming part. Because giving public legal information is obviously really tricky. If you give the wrong answer, it can be rough. And when you're doing a live stream, these interaction, you're answering questions sometimes on the spot. And if you give the wrong answer, and we had it happen during our live stream where we gave a kind of imprecise answer, and we really struggled with how to deal with that. Do we just issue a correction on the video? Do we reach out to the person involved, etc.? So it's things to think about. And it's also really important to develop certain reflexes for how to answer questions. So if you're not sure, don't give a response. Anyways, that's just kind of an aside. That was one of the challenges that we faced. So assuming everything's...
Sorry, it's Jess again. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem, no problem.
Just a quick request. When you're answering the questions publicly, do you mind repeating them? Because some of the people are on the chat, and so they're not seeing it. And so I've got two questions, actually. I don't mind addressing them. There's one from Fiona asking if, do you live facilitate comments during these events? Because their Clio's webinars are super interactive. So it's kind of impossible to imagine taking substantive questions through the Facebook Live comment stream. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, really, I find the Facebook comments stream was super interactive and quite nice. I think people are used to using it. But I mean, it just really depends on how you want to do it. Like, the primary advantage of Facebook is its reach and a lack of barriers, which I think is really important. I gave a Zoom conference last week, and 3 participants of 8 couldn't connect because they're in a kind of demographic that doesn't have strong computer skills. So, everyone's on Facebook, and it's easy to click one button. That's kind of the primary reason I use Zoom. It really depends on the audience. If people don't have a problem using Zoom to do kind of a targeted workshop, I mean, that's definitely gonna be the best solution. But what I think the thing to think about for streaming to the public is you really want to think about what is the lowest barrier to entry. And I think that's going to be Facebook or Instagram or I don't know, Twitch, even YouTube. There's hundreds of thousands of young people on Twitch and on YouTube that might never think to go on Facebook. And that's another thing. Our Facebook traffic, it's like 5% of people or less are like 20 years old or younger. Like, Facebook is a ghost town for kids these days. They've all moved on to other platforms. So that's another thing. That's another thing to think about. We're going to be reaching primarily people 25 or up, and we're not going to be reaching kids or youth. Sorry, that's the wrong word to use. I think, sure, some people might call me a kid here.
Fiona's also mentioned as well too, Alain, that also with Facebook Live, users are going to answer each other as well too.
Yeah, that could be a problem. Mm-hmm.
She mentions that with CLEO, that's Community Legal Education Ontario, they tend to aim their events towards service providers, whereas the 29,000 followers on their Facebook page are the general public. So it'd be much more challenging with a Q&A than Zoom, where they're able to invite targeted groups with email, website, and communications. Yeah,
no, for sure. There's going to be advantages to the platform. One of the things I did like was, and I just saw the question disappear, the thing disappear from the Q&A, was that the people are able to talk to each other as well, which I think it makes it more engaging. It makes it more of an interactive experience, which I think is something that's really important to think about when we're talking about pedagogy, and kind of the whole purpose of clear communication is not just your simple language and easy to understand stuff, is to make the whole thing a pleasant and engaging experience. So that's why I really trying to push the live stream element of things, because it's how people are used to interacting now. And I think especially these days. Geez.
I've got one more tech. Oh, perfect. You got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Paula is asking, like, what is a view? What does that mean? Do they watch the whole thing apart? In terms of the metric, honestly, I don't know. I'm assuming it means they watch a part of it. I don't know if it means they watch 5 seconds or not. I'm not super into the kind of nitty-gritty of the Facebook page. I just recently had admin access just to be able to do this, but I don't. That's not really my domain, unfortunately. I wish I knew. Actually, that's a really good question. And just I see you. Just one last question here before I move on to the actual streaming part from Fiona, is about asking about like the risk with legal information, and whether like the risk of people cross-talking, giving each other wrong information. And if Fiona mentions that, yeah, you can definitely address that with live facilitators, and that was absolutely my kind of take on it. And that's another really nice thing about having like a 2-person, 3-person panel doing the thing. What we did was assign one person as the expert and one is the moderator or the foil, and I basically played stupid and was like, wait, what about this? Can you explain this concept to me? I'm not sure I understand that. And it's a nice prompt as well for the presenter to kind of, if they miss something, and it makes for a nice dynamic. And I find a lot of the engaging podcasts I listen to kind of have that. If everyone listens to Radiolab, David Krolich, who's now retired, unfortunately, does this really, really well with his co-host, Jad Abumrad. And Robert is obviously a very smart, intelligent guy, but he kind of plays the buffoon sometimes. And it makes for a really fun back and forth. Obviously something that I'm no Robert Krolich, but I just thought that was a fun way to approach it. Okay, so going back to the more technical part of it, here, again, we're pretending that we have the Zoom window because I can't actually do it. I can copy and paste pictures of people, but I think everyone gets the idea of things. And I have my audio down here. I've got my video. I've tested it to make sure it works, because nothing worse than that. I'm gonna go ahead and click on streaming. Oh, hang on a second. I'm skipping a step for people who. You have to set up the streaming first of all, and you have a couple different ways of doing that. With the encoder like this, what you're gonna do is want to use a stream key, and you get that through Facebook. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up Facebook. Here, and in the configuration of producer on the top left here, you'll see stream settings. I'm assuming it's something similar in English. And you can choose here to go to use a stream key. This is a permanent key that you can basically plug into OBS, that it will always send the video to this address on Facebook. And so you're going to copy that key here. You're going to go back to OBS, and you're going to put it in here. And then you're gonna hit OK. So so it now knows where to send the video into the internet. It's gonna blast the beam out there and it's gonna arrive somewhere in Facebook Island.
I think we've lost your audio for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, can other people?
You're good on my end here, Alain.
How long would you say it was lost for? Just so I can go back.
Anna, was it just me? I think I lost about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I was okay on my end, Jess.
Oh, sorry, then that might just be me. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay, cool. So so OBS knows where to send the video, or the stream. Actually, it's not just a video. It's the whole kit. It's gonna be sending this little package here, and you can go ahead and click on streaming. So now it is sending it out, and this might start getting a little bit laggy because this computer needs a. Oh, here's the thing. If you have a computer and you're going to do this, make sure it's not like a clunky computer. Having a video card is really, really helpful. I don't have one right now. I'm going to get one because you'll see down here, like these are the metrics of the stream here. You need a decent internet connection if you want to put HD out, and you want to make sure that, because because right now I'm on a conference call, so it's rendering that video. It's now encoding this. That's more video processing power. So it takes a little bit of juice. So okay, right now it's sending it out, and let's go ahead and put it on the waiting room because that's what people are going to see. Let me just see real quick. Okay, and then now it is sending it out to Facebook. So I'm going to go to Facebook here, and in theory, we should be seeing it showing up here. Are people seeing my Facebook screen?
I've got it, Alain.
Great, awesome. Okay. Let's try this again. Oh, you know what the problem is? I think I'm sending it to my own personal page. Just give me 1 second. We're going to fix that. I'm sending it to the wrong address. Sorry, folks. Hopefully this will work now. Let's try this again. So one thing that's a little bit tricky with this is, there we go, it's connecting now. There is a 20-second delay between 30 seconds delay between OBS and Facebook. So there you go. See, now this is going onto Facebook. This is what people are going to see if I were to start the stream right here. I'm not going to because I don't really want to stream it to 30,000 people, but you can also pick where it's going to go here. You can, so here's a fun mistake that I made. When I did the first one, you'll see the account that I'm connected on here is like the Éducaloi webmaster account. I did it on my journal rather than doing to a page that I manage. And so for the first 5 minutes, we're just talking, but like nobody's connecting. I'm like, that's strange. And then finally I realized it. And then once I shared it to the actual page that I managed, then it was like instantaneously 150 people were on, and then it was go time. So that was pretty cool.
Alain, another question has come through, if you don't mind answering.
Yeah,
Thomas is asking how easy it is to save a separate audio-only file of whatever has been recorded if they want to distribute it podcast style later on.
Yeah, I imagine what you would do in that case is just have a separate audio encoder that would capture the audio. So I don't have a program necessarily in mind, but just like OBS can capture video and record it, I imagine you're going to be able to find an audio thing. I mean, OBS might even have it. I haven't looked into that option yet. That's a possibility, but I'm thinking it would just be a separate program. Okay, so this is going now, and here, actually, maybe I could just change the the settings really quickly. Yeah, just publish it for the webmaster themselves. You'll see here you can create a title. This is a test stream where we test streams. And then I'm going to go ahead and fire it off into the world. You'll see here there's metrics down here for the audio and the video. So I'm broadcasting at 500 kilobytes a second, which is around 720p. And so now this is what the world will see right now. No audio, just this stream starting soon thing. And you'll see on the left here, this is kind of the comment stream. And so as people pop in, they'll start talking. You can answer questions or not. And the neat thing is, later when this video is done and it's published on your page, the comments will appear at the time that the video, so like the comment will be like at 52 seconds, then, so you can really kind of, I find it really nice, so you can kind of tell where things are and click on it to go directly at that time. It's pretty neat. Okay, so this is going out there to the world. Like, this is basically Facebook streaming in a nutshell. And then when you're ready to go live, everything in the background is working well, everyone hears each other, what you're gonna do, and you can kind of do this fun thing. All right, we're gonna dissolve, we're gonna do a transition here. It's gonna last, I don't know, just about half a second. And then I'm just gonna switch it to live, and I'm gonna try to get back to the window really quickly. There we go. And you're gonna see in around 20, 30 seconds. And as soon as I click that little switch there, boom, it's gonna switch over, and then you just start because you're ready to go. There we go. That was a pretty lame transition, but again, this is all just proof of concept stuff. It's super rough around the edges. It's really easy to get it nice and polished. If you go to twitch.tv, you'll see thousands of people doing an amazing job with all sorts of stuff. But that is basically, in a nutshell, Facebook streaming. It's a little bit tricky to get set up, but once it gets going, it's really, really straightforward. They've made it really easy these days. So, and then when you're done, you can just click stop here. You are no longer live. That video will be saved, it will be published. And I'm gonna go back to OBS. You see here it's saying, oh, it's grumpy, it's been disconnected from Facebook. That's fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop the streaming. And also down here, I forget who was asking about the audio, you can record the stream on the OBS side as well. And so, like, just so people know, I've barely scratched the surface in this about what OBS can do. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't even looked at yet. It's super powerful. But if you want to just do very bare bones, basic streaming and have it a little bit kind of fancied up than just a person talking to you in front of his blinds that are closed because of the glare, you can do a really good job of it. And obviously, if you want to go really professional, there's a few things that I'd recommend. One is getting some form of green screen. I have a, and so that way you can do a really nice virtual background. But you don't necessarily need green. It's the easiest one because it doesn't clash with a lot of colors. I've got a blue, basically, sheet that I hang behind that will help create a virtual background. And I'm sure most of you have seen them yet, but if you're, let's see, actually, I might be able to show one off here. So I'm just gonna stop this. Here we go. You can do really fun, interesting ones. This is just kind of, but you'll see here that kind of this artifacting around. I mean, the headphones are rough, but if I had a green screen behind me, this would never appear. You'll see there's like a lot of distortion around, and obviously if you can kind of disappear and fun things like that. But there's ways of doing it so it's fun, interactive. But having a green screen is really nice because it lets you get rid of whatever background you're having, and it really cuts down on kind of visual noise, and you don't have to worry about cleaning your room. And if your roommates are walking around, then no one will see your roommates because they're all things that have happened to me. So I think that's mostly what I wanted to cover. let me just see if there's any more questions.
Yeah, there's two more if you don't mind addressing. There's one from People's Law School and another one from Linda, if you don't mind that.
Yeah, I'll take a look here. So People's Law School is asking, I had mentioned 4,000 views of a broadcast within a day. How many folks have been tuning in live to your streams? It's distinct from the numbers who are watching the recording. We've only done a few. This is all, like I said, pretty in the early stages for me. This is something that obviously a strategy that I would love that we'd pursue, but you know, money and time. But we had 120 concurrent viewers throughout the first kind of hour-long one. And people drop in and out. So, and that was with less than a day's kind of notice. I think if it's well promoted, if you pay for some promotion, it's relatively cheap on Facebook to promote. Obviously with COVID-19, the keywords to promote COVID-19 related information is really hard to actually buy those and get your advertising out because they're really filtering it. But anyway, in any event, that's kind of what, okay. So Linda, asking if you use OBS for anything other than Facebook, and we have Vimeo. I believe anything that has a stream key will be fine. You're going to, one second, let me just change the screen again. Somebody's being grumpy. Here we go, OBS. So again, I think it doesn't care if it's Facebook or not. It's basically like it's going to use a stream key and you can just, oh, here we go. That's what it is. So it does care. But you got a lot of options here, as you can see. And then Facebook uses stream keys. YouTube uses, similar thing. In any event, yeah, it's relatively platform agnostic. Doesn't care so much about what kind of platform you're using. Okay. There's one thing I wanted to talk about. Right. Another interesting thing you can do with Facebook. Oops, don't look at that. That's the wrong thing. It doesn't matter. I'm sure that's happened before. My work chat. Here we go, Facebook. You can also, another nice thing about the producer, and I mentioned this before, is that you can schedule videos and schedule broadcasts as kind of events, which is pretty cool, because that way you can create the event, people can reply to it, and it'll pop up, ready to go. You can promote it, it's gonna be at exactly X time. So you can either retransmit video that you've done before. So if I go and do a workshop somewhere, and I don't have a good internet connection, I can record it and I can transmit it later. But yeah, you go right here, you're gonna program a video. Here's the stream key. This is gonna be the announcement. And this is kind of like from the last one that we have done, some of the stuff that's left over, but yeah. And you're just gonna program the whole thing. And then you pick the time and the date, where it's gonna go, obviously through the page that I manage, not my own personal journal. Don't make my mistake. And you're going to choose your privacy settings. So again, also, if you want to do it for a more restricted crowd, that's very possible to do. You just have them join an event that you create, and then that's how they get access to it. So yeah, I think that's the last kind of thing that I wanted to show. So yeah, I hope that was informative and not too all over the place.
Thank you so much, Alain. Do you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Wow, that's really great timing. So we even have 10 minutes to spare, but we had quite a few questions that came in actually during the webinar, which is great that you were able to address those. Really appreciate it. So, I mean, I don't really see any more questions coming in just at this time, but obviously if anyone has any other questions coming up, you know, if I get them later on, or you can contact Alain directly, we'd be happy to follow up.
I'll put my email in the chat real quick.
That's perfect. Yeah, that would be great. And so that way, if anything comes up, if you guys are testing it, playing around with it and have a few questions that you can't find the answers to online, I know that there are a lot of resources, like Alain kind of mentioned on YouTube and stuff like that, to kind of help guide you through some more complex parts. But absolutely, Thank you, Alain, for providing us with your email there. And just in general, thanks for the information that you've shared today. It's super informative and helpful. The topic was pretty technical. We know it's hard to cover live, but we appreciate it. You did a fantastic job. And yeah, and we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And we hope everyone has a safe rest of the week. So that's great.
If I might just quickly, if there's other public legal education kind of folks out there that might want to work on some sort of streaming collaboration of some sort, please reach out, feel free. There's all sorts of projects that I think we could do that would be fun and interactive.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Anna. Again, thank you to everyone who tuned in, and thanks, Jess, for being on here as well. And I appreciate it. Everyone stay safe. Great. Bye.
Bye-bye.